Okay, welcome to the new episode of the Bootstrap Startup Show. And finally, both of your hosts, me and Stefan, are doing the podcast together. Today we have a new guest, Rick Carlson, who is a serial entrepreneur who runs several small businesses. And that's a really interesting experience for us. So we'll talk how to launch multiple businesses, how to manage all of them at the same time and grow them at the same time as well. We'll chat about the new software Rick is working on and discover the process. How did he validate the market, the needs of customers, and how what are his plans to scale this new product? Rick, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Maybe I just made a small intro, but I would like to ask you to introduce yourself to our listeners and also tell a little bit more about your companies.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So a little bit about me. I grew up super poor. I was the only white kid in the projects for about 5 years.
Wow.
And honestly, it was probably like the best thing that ever happened to me. And so when I got out into the quote unquote real world, I learned very quickly I really wasn't the guy to work for somebody. And while I did work for people and I had those random jobs, I was mainly, since I was 14, I've always been, working on my quote unquote side hustle, if you will. And, I grew up in an environment where if I wanted something, there was no money to buy it. Like I had to make that happen. And so I think I learned early on that I didn't want to rely on anybody else. Subconsciously, I think I learned early on that I didn't want to rely on anybody else. And so I just figured out what I had to do to not have to work for, a company or anybody. And so I've been primarily self-employed the past 25 years, which is, all of my adult life. And I've owned everything. I've mainly owned service businesses, service-oriented business, things that you could start, businesses that you could start with not a lot of money. Put the sweat equity in, and as you make money, you buy nicer equipment, and then you just rinse and repeat that. And so you've got something that's, really worth having. So
cool. Yeah. And can you share, also with our listeners, what are the companies you are running right now?
So currently, right now, I have my real estate license in 3 different states. So I run a small real estate team, and when I say small, I intentionally run a really small, tight ship. Right now, I only have one agent that works for me, and we're with everything that's going on with the thing around the world. I try to keep things lean and manageable, so that way when it doesn't consume all of my time, if you will. So I have a small real estate team. I have my mortgage license, so I'm able to originate loans, and that works really well with the real estate side of things. And then I own a small janitorial company. So we service about medium to large size facilities. So I'm able to partner with cleaners who want to make more money than the average market, and then they basically take over the account. And it's a subcontractor relationship. So and then I have an Airbnb business where we manage the Airbnbs that I own, and then we also will manage other people's Airbnbs. And then the last but not least is vacationclean.com. That is a SaaS product that we are building, and what we do is we automate the vacation rental turnover process. So if you're an individual host, generally the largest obstacle that I'm seeing is, and through research and my own issue, because this was my own issue, was turning over those units and getting them ready for the next guest. So I built a system that I would want to use that would solve that problem that wasn't currently in the market.
Cool. So as well, you shared how did you come up with a new business idea. It's really interesting. I wanted to ask you a question. I assume lots of our listeners have this question. How do you prioritize your time and devote enough time to each of the companies to scale and grow it?
Absolutely. Great question, by the way. So, through my whole working life, I've always been like, I don't want to quote unquote partner. Like, I just don't want to, share the bigger pie, if you will. What I figured out is after having employees for like 20 something years, they have no vested interest in the outcome. They're showing up and they're trading time for dollars. So what I figured out on kind of accident was when you bring somebody in that is a quote unquote like partner. Right now, I own 100% of all the companies that I run. That being said, I treat the people. So the key to scaling your life and your business is to leverage other people's time. And if you leverage other people's time with the intent of like they get to share the wealth, then they're they have a vested interest in staying around, being part of the program, this, that, and the other. So, so basically I have a key person for every business, and they essentially run they run that business. And then I'm available for questions, issues, whatever. And then I dictate the direction and the vision of the companies and make sure that stays online and really goes the direction we want it to go. And with that model, I've had pretty good success, relatively good success. I have a part-time, or I have a full-time mom who works for me on the real estate side. And she worked on average probably 20, maybe 30 hours a week on average last year, probably less, to be honest with you. And she cleared just under $50,000 last year.
Cool. One more question. Once you mentioned these people are running the companies, and you are, let's say, you are like a stakeholder. You are, let's say, a strategist, a person who set up the business growth direction for this company. Do you give any shares or maybe like standalone bonuses to achieve KPIs that you set for them? So how do you motivate these key people?
Yeah.
So I own like I said, I own 100%. There's no common shares that have been distributed to anybody, and there's a lot of reasons for that. For the SaaS business, that won't hold true long term. I do have who I would consider a technical co-founder, who's helped me build that business. So that being said, it's definitely on the table, long term. But in the short term, I don't have any shares distributed. On the other side of it is, I believe that when you are paid based on, results, and you pay more than the market pays, you're gonna find good people, and they're gonna want to stay. Because now in my janitorial company, the least paid janitor makes like $18 to $20 an hour.
That's really good.
Cool. Yeah, totally agree with this approach.
Yeah, it's like 40. It's anywhere between 50 to probably 70% more than the industry pays. Like the average in the industry is like $10 an hour.
10, 12, yeah, I remember.
So, yeah.
Makes
so
sense.
I worked. I had a summer trip of adventure. So I worked as a janitor in Wyoming. It's not far actually from where you are at Washington. And I remember the average was like $8 to $10. If you were really lucky, if you would get like $12 an hour, you would be like, wow, I nailed it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you know, what I tell people that work with me is I'm paying you to solve a problem. And by solving that problem, that means you don't call in sick. I don't want to, you know, I'm not interested in the drama or the whatever, just do the job. If everything looks good and I think it looks good and the client's not complaining, then we're on track. You know, if I have to talk to you, I mean, I've got one janitor that I haven't talked to in probably 3 months.
Nice.
Great.
He does
You know, yeah, please go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say he does his job. He does a good job. He sends me an invoice. I pay the invoice. We just keep doing that over and over again, and everybody wins.
Cool. You also mentioned that you set up processes in place. And this is great because once you have procedures or standard operational procedures or processes, it helps, you know, to systematize your business. And I'd like to ask a question. How do you come up with or what's your process on standardizing processes looks like? How do you create these processes for other people to run your businesses?
So I think every role and, you know, every industry has a different character type and that personality type. And then you niche that down even more to the specific position. And I think that it is a really it's really important to understand what that looks like and where to find that person.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of just hiring anybody, you know, up until recently, everybody that worked for me was they were middle-aged female women that what I needed, they filled that niche, and it was just coincidence, by the way. Somebody had made a comment. Somebody in my world had made a comment about how everybody works for me is a woman, and my response to that was, yeah, because they're committed to the process and they stay and get the job done. And they don't leave for that next best thing that's not always the next best thing. And so, and then I was like, oh, wait, that makes a lot of sense. So then I really narrowed down what each role looks like, who's the best person to fill that role.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, stay-at-home moms are like the world's biggest secret that nobody's taking advantage of.
Makes sense.